Council are to be audio visually recorded and streamed live. A link is available on the Glamorgan Spring Bay Council website to the YouTube platform, where the public can view the meeting live and watch recordings of previous council meetings. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and Regulation 33, these audio files will be retained by Council for at least 6 months and made available for viewing live, as well as online within 5 days of the scheduled meeting. The written minutes of the meeting, once confirmed, prevail over video-audio recording of the meeting. So once again, welcome everybody. We have an apology from Councillor Wisby, who was unwell, and all the other councillors are in attendance. Declaration of pecuniary interests from councillors. I have one from Councillor Crawford, which is not necessarily a pecuniary interest, it's an interest in agenda item 3.2, and one from the Deputy Mayor, which is agenda item 7.6. Thank you. So agenda item 2, confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council on March the 27th. The recommendation that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held Tuesday the 27th of March 2018 be confirmed as a true and correct record. Would someone care to move that motion? Councillor Woods, do we have a seconder? Councillor Steiner, all those in favour? Recommendations moved. Thank you, unanimous. Agenda item 2.2, recommendation the minutes of special meeting held Tuesday the 10th of April 2000 be confirmed as a true and correct record. Someone care to move that? Councillor Farmer, seconder. Councillor Woods, all those in favour? Unanimous? Carried. Thank you. 2.3, workshop held on the 10th of April 2018. The recommendation is the Council notes this for information. Thank you. Agenda item 3, Planning Authority section. So under Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2005, the Chairperson hereby declares that the Council is now acting as a planning authority under the provisions of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 for Section 3 of the agenda. A councillor move, please. Recommendation. Deputy Mayor.
I move that Council now acts as a planning authority.
Have a seconder, please. Councillor Crawford. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 3.1. Dwelling at 318 Rebben Road, Spring Beach. Someone care to move the recommendation, which is on page 16. Thank you. Councillor Woods. Thank you.
I move, Mr Mayor, that pursuant to Section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 and the Glamorgan Spring Bay Interim Planning Scheme 2015, that the application for dwelling at 318 Rebben Road, Spring Beach, DA 201-829 be approved, subject to the following conditions 1 to 8.
Seconder for that motion. Councillor Farmer. Open for discussion, councillors. Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor Kent. Just a question for an explanation or clarification on the page 10, just the paragraph 5.6 above the diagram, where it says from the high water mark to the 10 metre contour, and then it says all acceptable solutions in the associated code are satisfied principally by virtue that the lowest point of the lot is 7.25 metres above sea level. I just didn't really understand that with the 10 and then the 7.25.
Through the Mayor, in this section of Spring Beach, the coastal inundation hazard overlay is drawn from high water mark to the 10 metre elevation, which is approximately the first third of that lot. That's just because there's inadequate data for more precise mapping, but the important thing is the house is well above the minimum floor level that is specified for that code, which is around 2.5 metres. So there's code applies, but there's actually no risk whatsoever.
No, thank you. Just had a further question through the chair to the planner. On the road reservation, with the zoning or the road reservation, how likely is that to be modified or diminished in the future? What's the norm on those types of road reservations, the change to that?
Through the Mayor, look, the only comment I think I can make on that is now the council's works in that area have been completed with the new bridge and the realignment of the road further south and the development of the car park. So this is a slightly old photo which doesn't show that work. I wouldn't have thought there'd be any need to shift that physical road.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kent. I was just asking for that, and the simple thing is that it has actually got quite an area in front of the site, and I was just wondering in the future if there's any chance of that actually being diminished so that the actual setback might be a problem. That's why I was asking about the road reservation.
Through the Mayor, I can't at the moment envisage any need for that road reservation to change.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? No further questions. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Nil? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 3.2, retail complex. Councillor Crawford has shown interest and will remove the room. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that pursuant to section 57 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 and the Glamorgan Spring Bay Interim Planning Scheme 2015, application for multi-tenancy retail shops at lot 202 and 203 Burgess Street, Bishano, DA 2018/44 be approved, subject to conditions 1 to 13.
Thank you. Can we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Steiner. Thank you. It's open for discussion, councillors.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There's been people that contacted me regarding the alleyway that should be created between the new premises and the existing farm shed, as it's referred to as. I'm not sure if the planner, through you, Mr Mayor, can actually enlighten us, for excuse the pun, regarding night lighting in that area. Is there a good lighting in that area? And the people are concerned about it could create an area where people could congregate after dark and be up to antisocial behaviour. The people have said that maybe the installation of a camera might make that a safe area, but can I just have a clarification from the planner? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
Through the Mayor, the alleyway, so to speak, arguably will be created, but it's a relatively short section. It's a straight section. There's no dog legs or anything like that where people could conceivably hide behind or anything like that. I'm not 100% certain how it's lit at the moment. If there are any issues, though, it is simply a case of lighting the area. I would have thought a camera would be unnecessary.
So, Yes.
But maybe, Mr Mayor, we could actually add an extra recommendation, number 14, that the appropriate lighting be undertaken by the developer in that area for security purposes.
Thank
Just so we
you,
can do it.
Councillor Palmer. Yep. Thank you, Mr Planner. Any further questions? Councillor Steiner?
Mr Mayor, I've got a question about the car parking, and it's probably to the planner. There's a shortfall of, I think, in total about 14 car parking spaces in that area, and I think there's 6 or 8 with this particular one. And I believe that the money paid in lieu is going to the triangle, to the construction of whatever needs to be done in the triangle. Yet I thought that money that was allocated or that was gotten from that parking in lieu, that those funds would actually be used to secure or to you know, sort of build more parking facilities
Elsewhere.
instead of the triangle or, you know, a building or something like that. That was my impression.
Manager like to comment on that?
Mr Mayor, we don't generally have enough money in parking in lieu to do any of that work, so it's usually allocated to other. We don't actually hold a specific amount of money for parking in lieu. It's like public open space. We concentrate on the public open space or the parking we've got and ensure that's done properly.
So just another comment then on that. I mean, that seems to me to then just stretch out the issue of parking overall, and I'm not sure that Bicheno has a parking plan as such, but probably if it doesn't, that's something that we need to perhaps look at.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you, Councillor Steiner. Deputy Mayor?
Mr Mayor, I'm just following on from Councillor Steiner, and I note that there have been concerns expressed in relation to the provision of car parking and the storage and collection of waste. There's no doubt parking is an issue right across all our towns and villages in our municipal area, and perhaps it's time we did have a robust and detailed parking plan to be initiated for all towns. For the purposes of this development, though, Condition 8 requires that a detailed car parking plan is prepared and certified by a qualified civil engineer or other competent person before any building permit can be issued. Without such a plan, the planning permit does not exist. Condition 9 has dealt with the concerns regarding the storage and collection of waste. So with those clauses, I support the application. I'd just like to clarify, though, Mr Mayor, is there a Condition 14 in relation to lighting? Will there be a Condition 14?
My understanding,
We'll add one.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions from councillors? Being no further questions, I put the motion. All those in favour? Against? The motion is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Councillor Crawford, thank you. Councillor Crawford, the motion has been passed with the asking the planner to go back and get some lighting within the laneway. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item 3.3, specific area plan and other amendments, Canberra Estate, Swansea. Recommendation is on. I had it here a minute ago. 74. Councillor, be prepared to move the recommendation. Councillor Woods. Just one second. What was it?
Mr Mayor, we need to, in A1, second dot point needs to be removed
A1.
as an amendment before it's moved to the recommendation. So that's A1 dot point 2 that says to apply to all road reservations. That needs to be deleted.
Okay.
So,
Back to you, Councillor Woods.
thank you. That as provided by the provisions in Section 3 of Schedule 6 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993, LUPA, A, pursuant to section 34(1)A Planning Scheme Amendment AM 2018/03 be initiated and certified as being in accordance with section 30 and 32 of LUPA. To introduce the Canberra specific area plan for the Canberra estate consistent with attachments A to the report but modified with respect to clause numbering to add hospital services as a discretionary use if for palliative care, and 2 at reference number 60 in the table E131 of the Historic Heritage Code, delete CT 111628/1 and insert CT 148001/1.
We have a seconder for that recommendation.
Sorry, I haven't finished yet. Yep.
You haven't finished?
And
Sorry.
B, particularly rezone CT 148111/1 from significant agricultural zone to rural resource zone as depicted below. 4, particularly rezone CT 111628/1 and 23216/3 from rural residential zone to environmental management zone as depicted below. Particularly rezone C to 149607/1 from significant agricultural zone to environmental management zone as depicted below. 7, amend the coastal inundation high hazard area to include an area near Swan Nook that has been identified as being at risk of coastal inundation as described on page 71 of the IRENIC report and depicted below. 8, amend the coastal erosion hazards area to include an area near Swan Nook that has been identified as being at risk of coastal erosion as described on page 72 of the IRENIC report. Am I saying that right, IRENIC? Is that correct? Yeah, sorry, thank you. And depicted below. 9, amend the biodiversity protection area to include the conservation covenants that apply to CT 111628/1, 23216/3 and 149607/1. B, pursuant to section 38 of LUPA, AM 2018/03 be placed on public exhibition for no less than 42 days.
28.
42.
Thank
I've
you.
moved the motion, it's 42.
Thank you. Okay, we have a seconder for the motion. Deputy Mayor. It's open for discussion, councillors. Council discussion?
Yes.
Oh, right. Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
No, thank you. Mr Mayor, councillors, like members of the community, I only learnt the full extent of this proposal since receiving my agenda. As a community member, I had heard any number of whispers and rumours since the property changed hands. The specific area plan amendment will provide the public the opportunity to have input into the proposal prior to submission to the Tasmanian Planning Commission and their determination as to whether it meets the objectives of the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, the statewide planning provisions. This is not absolving Council's responsibility as a planning authority in relation to the specific area plan, but rather it is simply part of the state planning process. Any development on the property will still be subject to the usual development application process. It should be noted that many of the developments proposed already hold discretionary status under the planning scheme, so do not require this or any other amendment to the planning scheme to proceed. The amendment in some cases tightens the rules around development, for example, in relation to the heritage value of the homestead. Those who've taken the time to send me emails or phoned have talked about being a stakeholder. It should be remembered that the property owner is a stakeholder as well and has put this proposal forward that will, if the amendment is approved for public exhibition tonight, afford all stakeholders the opportunity to comment. Pursuant to Section 38 of LUPA, the scheme amendment will have to be placed on public exhibition. Any representations will need to be carefully considered by Council in its role as the planning authority before submission to the Tasmanian Planning Commission. Some of the respondents reminded me of my function and powers under Section 20 of the Local Government Act in relation to representing the community. It needs to be remembered that the owners of this property are part of the community and they deserve the same consideration as any other member of the Glamorgan Spring Bay municipal area. Some even reminded me there was an election coming up. One suggestion made to me is the property would no longer be accessible to local residents and Tasmanians alike, as it will be foreign owned. The property was sold to the current owners by the long-term local owners. Foreign investment in this country is governed by the federal government and is not something that Council has any control over. I'm not sure that the assertion that the property will no longer be available to local residents and Tasmanians alike is accurate. There is no suggestion in the documents I have seen that it will be exclusive to overseas guests, although there is a suggestion that it will be marketed to a particular sector. As stated in the report, the request can further the relative objectives and criteria under LUPA and is suitable to be initiated. The process is an initiation of a planning scheme amendment that will be placed on public exhibition for a determined period to allow the community to have full, frank, robust consideration of the proposal. Any representations will then need to be considered by Council before the planning scheme is sent to the Planning Commission for approval. This is, as I said, this is not absolving Council's responsibility as the planning authority. By initiating the amendment, we provide the opportunity for robust public input into the decision-making process. The initiation of the amendment process should be supported. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, further discussion? Councillor Farmer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I'd just like to back those words of the Deputy Mayor. She has the very good way of putting things, and congratulations on that report. I see here tonight that we allow our municipality to grow but thrive through this particular project if it does go ahead, not only just in Tasmania but in Australia. The proposal covers many areas over a large part of the 3,000 acre property. From what I gather, I think it was about 1,900 hectares that was going to be impacted. Some of the areas are not being used to their full potential. They can be now maybe made into sustainable, usable and protected areas through this particular plan. The golf course that's said that could be built would have a buffer between it and the Molting Lagoon, which would allow some passive recreation in the area, and I think that would be a good outcome for a golf course in that area. As Deputy Mayor said, the project also allows for the historic buildings to be protected and also to be open to the public, while also there can be continuation and improvement of the agricultural land on the prime land, which will also create some employment. From what I gather, Mr Mayor, the proponents have signed up to the Swan irrigation scheme, making that scheme quite viable for the area. They've also stated that they have other dams in the property and they will be building more water storage. From what I gather, Mr Mayor, this is a 20-year plan, backed by people I consider not just for the quick dollar. Its location is world class and it will complement other developments such as Solace. Golfing tours are very popular worldwide, and this is yet another one to be enjoyed by that particular area of tourism. My main concern, Mr Mayor, is the accommodation of workers in projects such as large as this. However, I suggest that could be another area that could be investigated by other entrepreneurs providing workers accommodation. I do suggest site employee accommodation should be part of large developments such as this, Mr Mayor, in the future. In Queensland, I was up in Queensland last year and I saw many upmarket dongers, as they call them, not being used because of the downturn of the mining area up there. And those particular dongers can be transported and used in that particular way. That's just my particular observation. So I do think that we need to make sure that we have workers' accommodation included in such large developments. I'm a bit. I have received many phone calls today, and I reckon 15, probably at least, emails. The majority of them are asking for a deferment of this particular item, so that it can be workshopped by the council to invite the writer of the report. I think it's Irene Duckett, her name is, up to the workshop, and then a decision to be made at the May agenda. I could put that as a motion, but I'll just leave it at this stage for other people who wish to discuss on this matter.
Thank you. Councillors. Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor Kent. Councillors, I was extremely disappointed that in our role as councillors collectively and as planning authority, the first time most of us had access to any details on the proposed Cambria specific area plan was last Thursday afternoon, when council agenda was made available to us. The size, the complexity and implications regarding introducing the Cambria Special Area Plan makes it imperative that relevant issues are discussed in much greater depth than what can occur at this meeting today. Therefore, I would like to table a foreshadowed motion. I have it on the stick, but I'll just briefly tell you. Number one is that we request permission from the Tas Planning Commission to extend the time frame for the considering of the agenda item to the 29th of May 2008, so next council, just after next council meeting, and that the workshop be held between interested councillors and the planning manager, Mr Shane Wells, prior to the 11th of May. And that if the extension of time request is refused, then we have a special meeting in the time that's relevant. The request for the planning scheme amendment before us today seeks to introduce a specific area plan and amend text and maps of the planning scheme. The overall purpose is to facilitate a large-scale tourism-based development comprising a health retreat, resort, agricultural events, golf courses and accommodation. The planner states, and I quote, "The proposal has a high degree of complexity and significance in terms of economic and environmental considerations. An extensive amount of background material and site studies are included in this request," as we spent the weekend reading. Yet as an individual member of the Glamorgan Spring Bay Planning Authority, I've only had 4 full days to read and try and digest all the reports and recommendations. Collectively, this is the first time that we've had an opportunity to discuss this issue as a council or as a planning authority. I'm not interested in initiating or certifying anything that I do not understand or have not had sufficient time to digest, particularly regarding some of the more obscure implications to the changes. This does not imply I'm against this development per se, although I am concerned that I'm expected to vote on a specific area plan only without an accompanying development plan. No specific development proposal was included with the request to amend, even though there has been extensive and detailed investigations occurring since early 2015. And from the reports received, it appears that a specific development plan should be available. As mentioned in one of the consultants' report, they actually quote, "The devil will be in the detail." That's what concerns me. As a planning authority, we need to take our time over reaching decisions that have long-lasting implications for our communities and future communities, and given the process has taken 3 years till now, another month is insignificant. Dire consequences can eventuate if we do not set our minds to long-term considerations, as can be witnessed in many areas, particularly on the mainland, with numerous councils now trying to buy back foreshores, etc., that was sold off to private enterprise some 5+ decades ago. I only mention this as is significant in that those councils made a decision to rezone foreshores for a relatively short-term gain. We perhaps need to heed the mistakes made by others. Elected members should not just be a rubber stamp, and if excuse me, because if that is all we are, then we may as well disband the local government altogether. I also do not believe that the residents and ratepayers should have sift through all the data to make submissions on issues that we, as a planning authority, may not even agree to at the moment. Councillors, if you have issues of concern or not 100% in agreement with the local area objectives, That is the use class, whether permitted or discretionary, the development standards, re height and setbacks. A reminder that the acceptable solution is 12 metres, and that can be on a ridge line. That's acceptable solution. So there would need to be a DA, but it doesn't necessarily need to be actually advertised, or and community may not be able to, the public may not be able to actually comment on that. Then I'd ask you to vote against the motion before you at the moment and support my foreshadowed motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, further comment? Councillor Parker?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I fully agree with what Councillor Crawford said. I won't be supporting this as it is today. I asked all councillors that they had time to read this. 5 days is insufficient time to read this. This is a major development and we need to have it right before we make the decision tonight. And for that reason, I will not support it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Steiner?
Mr Mayor, I at this stage don't support or am against this particular application. However, I think, you know, on Thursday it just hit me and I hadn't known about this at all. So I think it's been far too little time to actually digest this. And with such an important and long-term project, I think I, for one, would like to investigate this a little bit more, be informed about it a little bit more and understand it a little bit more before making a decision on it. So I won't be supporting this tonight.
Okay. All right. Councillor Woods?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If I may sum up, I came in tonight with a very open mind. I've got lots of notes scribbled throughout my agenda, and I concur with what Councillor Arnold was saying at the beginning, and I also concur with Councillor Crawford's detailed report and also everyone else around the table. So it puts me in a little bit of a difficult position in respect to which way do I go. And given the fact today that we have had, and it being such a short time, I can't see, I fully understand that this is an initiation process, and I fully understand what it means, that by initiating what we're doing tonight, it gives the general public and ratepayers and residents a chance to make their submissions. But in saying that, I also concur with what Councillor Steiner, Councillor Crawford and Councillor Parker have said, and so therefore I will not be supporting this decision tonight, and I've made that decision simply because I've come in with an open mind and I have listened to all councillors around the table, and I don't believe that one more month, if we defer this to go to the May agenda, I don't believe that it's going to be imperative or imposed upon the development or this application. So in saying that, I will not be supporting this tonight.
Okay. Any further comment, councillors, before the motion is put?
We've got, Mr Mayor, just a clarification. We've got Councillor Crawford's had the motion and I want to put a motion up. So where are we as far as amended motions go? Or?
I've actually put a foreshadowed motion, which means that will be the next, beg your pardon, sorry. Apologies.
Planner, you want to comment there?
I'd just like to make 2 points. Firstly, I can appreciate the complexity and the short amount of time. That's unfortunately the process that we follow. To me, if my thoughts, if as a councillor, if you wanted to make a fully informed position on this matter, you need to understand what the community's view is. It should go out of consultation so that the community at large, the collective community, can have a say, and you can all be informed by that and then make a collective decision on the merits of this. The second point is there is a vast array of detailed information. There's 2 binders full of application documents associated with this. Some of that information is on tonight's agenda, but not all. So if we defer this, we're just going to go for a month or 2 months with the community only having access to what's on our current agenda not being able to see the complete picture. I think that's a disservice to the community. That's my view. That's not as a planner, that's just my personal view. I think this should...
It's not a position for a planner to put his
Well,
own personal
I've asked his...
opinion.
Can't
Yeah,
point
but
of
it's
order
not
me.
opinion. Well, of course I can.
I'll accept his comment, and you finished,
I'm
planner?
finished.
Okay.
Mr Mayor, could I say something?
General Manager?
Please. If you read 2.3 of the report, it says the planning authority must consider this report but is not bound to adopt the recommendation. Broadly, the planning authority can either 1, adopt the recommendation, or 2, vary the recommendation by adding, modifying or removing recommended reasons and conditions, or replacing an approval with a refusal, or vice versa. Any alternative decision requires a full statement of reasons to comply with the Judicial Review Act 2000 and the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulation 2005. Now, I concur with Mr Wells on this. There's 42 days of public consultation, which normally doesn't happen in a normal planning application. This is only an instigation of that community consultation. And once all that's back, council can then consider where it needs to go after all that community consultation. There can be as many workshops as you like in that 42 days period, but this is only initiation. This is not approving the development, and we need to give the community the right, and 42 days it's been extended to consider this development.
Thank you. Councillor Woods.
Mr Mayor, if I may, being the mover of the motion, I will sum up, and I wish Mr Wells had have possibly stepped in a little bit earlier than what he did, but he didn't, so therefore I will sum up, and I will just put the motion that has been put in front of us, and I implore you to put it to the vote.
Mayor Kent, could I just actually clarify, right, that what the planner, Mr Wells, and the General Manager, Mr Metcalfe, is saying about community consultation, well, that will happen anyway if actually the foreshadow motion or whatever goes ahead. So there's still ample opportunity that will happen. That's part of the process.
Okay.
So
Yep.
it's not like it's not going to happen if this...
Right. So the motion is... Thank you, Councillor Crawford.
Yeah.
Motion. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4. Against? 1, 2, 3. Motion is carried. Thank you. Councillors, thank you. Agenda item 3.4. Extend the Spring Bay Industrial Specific Area Plan. The recommendation is on page 86. Someone care to move that recommendation?
I move that, as provided by the provisions of Section 3 of Schedule 6 of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993, LUPA, A, pursuant to Section 34(1)B, Planning Scheme Amendment AM 2018/04, be initiated and certified as being in accordance with Sections 0 and 32 of LUPA to apply to the Spring Bay Industrial Specific Area Plan as shown in attachment A, and to 149 Slipway Road, Tribunna, CT 137724/2, 11 Slipway Road, Tribunna, CT 18880/1, part of 336 Oakhampton Road, Tribunna, CT 121810/1, and adjoining Crown land, including and adjoining road reservations. B, pursuant to Section 38 of LUPA, AM 2018/04, be placed on public exhibition for no less than 28 days. And C, pursuant to Section 39 of LUPA, if no representations are received during the public exhibition, Council directs the General Manager to advise the TAS Planning Commission in writing that no representations have been received.
Thank you. Can we have a seconder, please? Councillor Farmer. Open for discussion, councillors. Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. I won't delay the debate on this. My reasons for not supporting this today is the same as the reason I didn't support the last, that it hasn't been discussed. People can argue all they like that it's been initiated by council, initiated and certified, agrees with. So I won't be supporting this today. I also had a question to the planner about, my understanding was it was a light industrial. Has that changed, or it's light industrial specific area plan?
Through the mayor. So attachment B is what the commission has recently approved. Is the Spring Bay Industrial Specific Area Plan. That's on page 89. So pages 89, 90, 91 are the Spring Bay Industrial Specific Area Plan as approved recently, and the amendment is to extend that to the two adjoining properties.
Mayor Ken, I understand that. That wasn't actually my question. It was like when it came through to council, I thought we'd actually re-changed that to light industrial. Way back when.
I remember that being discussed, but nevertheless, the commission's approved it as just the industrial specific.
Thank you.
Any further questions from councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Woods, Councillor Steiner, Deputy Mayor, myself, Councillor Parker and Councillor Farmer. Motion has been carried. Thank you. And those against was Councillor Crawford. Thank you. Thank you.
We have to move this one.
Now, just before we close off in planning, we have to move, introduce the Canberra specific area plan for Canberra State. No, that's
7.1.
7.1, where are we? The LPS needs to be handled in the Planning Authority. We need one modification to the Canberra recommendation, which we've done, and that needs to be moved.
We need a motion to, Mr Mayor, if I may, we need a motion to move item 7.1 to the Planning Authority and make it item 3.5.
Mr Mayor, I'll do that. I'll move that agenda item 7.1 be moved into the Planning Authority and become agenda item 3.5.
Thank you. Seconder. Steiner. Thank you. Open for discussion, councillors. No discussion?
There's some recommendations.
Put the motion. All those in
There's
favour?
no
Put the motion, Mr Mayor, if I
you-
may.
Yep. Yes.
Council endorse that council endorsed that it is satisfied that the attached local provisions schedule for Glamorgan Spring Bay meets with LPS criteria of section 34 of LUPA, and we're on page 137 too, just for ease of finding the motion.
Mr Mayor, could I just make a point of order here that we didn't actually put the motion to move the agenda item? I don't think. Did you?
We had a mover and seconder, we didn't
had a-
actually.
Yeah,
So
did.
you need to put that motion.
So we need to deal with that motion first.
This is the one that you brought up earlier.
No, this is the motion to move the agenda item from 7.1 to 3.5,
Okay.
which has already been moved and seconded. Yeah.
Okay. So all those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you.
So the motion is, Mr Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
that council endorse that it is satisfied that the attached local provision schedule for Glamorgan Spring Bay meets the LPS criteria of section 34 of LUPA. B, that council endorse the local provision schedule for Glamorgan Spring Bay and the supporting report for submission to the Tasmanian Planning Commission under section 35(1). C, council delegates the general manager and manager planning and special projects its powers and functions to A, submit the LPS to the commission, pursuant to section 34(5)(1) of LUPA in the form outlined in this report. B, submit the provisions for transition under Schedule 6 of LUPA to the Minister for Planning. C, modify the LPS if a notice is received from the Commission pursuant to section 35(5)(b) and advise the Council of any such modifications. D, exhibit the LPS pursuant to section 35(b), 35(c) and 35(d). Represent the Council at its hearings pursuant to section 35(h), and D, Informed public consultation continues with regular updates, reports to Council and the TPC until such times that the TPC has provided approval for formal public exhibition.
Thank you. Seconder? Deputy Mayor, open for discussion, councillors. Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Kent. I actually have a problem with this today. We did have a workshop, and I would thank the planner, Mr Wells, for spending 2 hours last week or the week before going through this document with me. One of the problems that I have, councillors, is what we talk about when we just tick off on things, that on page, I don't know what page it is because there's no page numbers, but it's to do with the particular purpose zone of Dolphin Sands, and the A1 of the building height must be no more than 5 metres, and then we have a performance criteria that says that, of course, can be different than that. I've only lived at Dolphin Sands for near 25 years. We have always had, until the interim planning scheme, a 5 metre in the particular purpose zone, 5 metre maximum. So somehow this has been transposed in the interim planning scheme, and then this is actually just then transferred over to the new planning scheme in the local, like the local specific area. So that kind of concerns me, that I'm wondering how many other things have changed as well. I'm not actually saying that this document is incorrect. What I'm saying is it concerns me that really important changes were made that I certainly were remiss and didn't pick up, and I'm sure there's other ones as well. So I'm asking the planner, how do we rectify those? Because there would have had to been conditions or reasonings behind that, those changes. So actually asking the planner on that situation, how they can be rectified. Thank you.
Through the Mayor, my approach to putting the LPS together with the particular purpose zones and specific area plans is to carry them over. There's things that get reworded, but the policy is the same. The provisions are basically the same. So, Councillor Crawford's referring to a change from the 1994 scheme to our current interim scheme. I don't know the background to that. When the interim scheme was prepared, it must have gone through some council resolution to be signed off and sent through. Whether there was I can only, from my point of view, I can only assume there was a deliberate decision made to allow performance criteria for height in Dolphin Sands. I don't think that was untoward. That's before my time. But what this LPS document is attempting to do is just keep our current particular purpose zones as is, deliver the same outcomes that they deliver today. This is because if we do that, they're protected by the transitional provisions, which is part of the recommendation. They just transition over.
Bill?
If, I should say, look, there is, through this process, if this goes through tonight, it goes to the Commission, there is an opportunity for further correspondence from Council, further advice. I can ask, if the Council has resolved that there should be an absolute maximum height standard in Dolphin Sands, well, so be it, I'll put that to the Commission. But I'm working on the basis that there was a deliberate decision to take it away.
Thank you. Further discussion, councillors? Councillor Crawford?
Mayor Kent, the other issue that I actually had, and I did discuss this with the planner, and councillors will remember reading that the planner was unable to come up with economic, social and environmental reasons why the absolute foreshore should be limited to 5 metres, and to me that's a really important issue that I think the community is really concerned about. I actually also won't be supporting this because I actually think that should have been included. Council should have made an effort to try and actually find those certainly social and environmental reasons why that should happen. We have talked about the sense of isolation of reasons that people go to places like Maria and whatever because of the foreshore heights and no buildings and that, and I think it's really important in our area that we maintain that sense of place. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments, councillors, before the motion is put? No further comment. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Recommendations. Councillor Woods, Councillor Steiner, Deputy Mayor, myself, Councillor Farmer. Against, Councillor Parker and Councillor Crawford. The motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item now. Under Regulation 20(5) of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2005, the Chairperson hereby declares that the Council is no longer now acting as a planning authority under the provisions of Land Use Planning Approvals Act 1993 for Section 3 of the agenda.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that Council no longer acts as a planning authority.
Seconder, Councillor Farmer. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Carried. Agenda item 4, public question time. I have 2 public questions. Mr Grant Andrews. We've got a microphone here for you to use, Mr Andrews.
Grant Andrews, I'm at Dolphin Sands. And my question's regarding the aquifer. I've read most of the report, and there's no assurance of protection for the aquifer as far as I've read it. This is going to be an issue that's going to keep coming up. So my question is there an assurance in the future that the aquifer will be protected? And also of concern is leaching runoff from the golf course into the aquifer through the use of pesticides, fertiliser.
Thank you. I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
General
Mayor?
Manager, sorry. Oh, okay. General Manager.
Mr Mayor, we would have to take that on notice, but I assume if this development gets the green light, well, the planning scheme amendment gets the green light, there have to be development applications, and within those development applications, those specific things would be taken care of.
Thank you.
And if I'm may
Yes,
just add quickly,
Planner. Yep.
Today, the area where the golf course is envisaged is now zoned rural resource. Today, they could apply for a golf course. It would be discretionary, subject to biodiversity codes and various coastal hazard codes and other considerations. If the specific area plan is approved, there'll be no change to that. A golf course would still be discretionary, subject to public notification, subject to biodiversity provisions and all the other hazard-based codes in the planning scheme. So in effect, the specific area plans this big thing, has a lot going on, but the golf course is a status quo change.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms Connaughton, question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. When a customer writes or emails into the council, you have certain protocols in place to acknowledgement of written requests or inquiries within 2 working days. Is that correct? And where necessary, provided a response within 14 working days. I placed something on the agenda and at this stage have not received a response from the councillor concerned at all, and I refer to this letter of the 15th of March, and that was for Councillor Wisby in the February council meeting, and I have not received any correspondence from her or council at this stage. Is that the normal protocol for council, or am I wrong?
Well, I think I'll try and answer it the best way possible. The individual that you're referring to is absent, as you can see, and obviously it'll be placed on the next agenda, and my personal view is, for what it's worth, not necessarily councillors, is that it's probably a matter outside council, but that's my personal view. But we'll put it back on the agenda, and hopefully the council will be here or speak to you prior to the next council meeting.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Councillors, information reports, agenda item 5, over to the General Manager. Councillors, obviously questions and to the General Manager on the reports that are placed in front of you this evening.
Mr Mayor, I don't actually have any questions. I'd just like to make a comment on the Community Connect sessions. The ones that we have held at Coles Bay and Bicheno and Tribana have been particularly successful, and I would encourage all those in Swansea to attend the one on June the 6th, which is going to be held at the Mayshore Health and Wellbeing Centre, I think, I would encourage Council to continue with this Community Connect process, because in my view it has been particularly valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. Any Councillor Farmer?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just on that, I was on the understanding that the Community Connect sessions would involve some of the managers of council too to attend. I was a little disappointed that that none were at the Tribana session. I was hoping that maybe some of the managers could also come along and talk to the ratepayers, not just yourself and the General Manager, and the planner was there too, I think. Maybe at Swansea we could encourage some of the managers to come along also. Therefore we might get a wider range of people to attend.
Yes, I have no disagreement with that, but as you well know, it was a rushed meeting at the men's shed, and by and large the only people there were people who are running the men's shed, so it's a bit difficult. Well, not difficult, it's the next one. The communication gets out in the marketplace, and hopefully give everybody plenty of time, and will happen. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions of the General Manager on his report, councillors? No further. The recommendation the management reports be received and noted. Thank you. Agenda item 6, minutes of section 24 subcommittees. There are no minutes for section 24 committees for the April agenda. Agenda item 7, officers' reports requiring a decision.
We've done that one, Mr Mayor.
We've done that one.
Over to page 138 now.
138. That's it, 138. Agenda item 7.2, council representation on the Coles Bay Hall Committee. The recommendation there is council nominates a new council representative for the Coles Bay Hall Committee. Councillor Woods.
Mayor, I'll nominate, the council nominates Councillor Farmer for this committee at Coles Bay Hall.
Have we a seconder for that nomination?
I'll second that.
Have we, well, I should ask Councillor Farmer, are you fitting well enough to take on that responsibility, sir?
I'm the most southern councillor in the municipality, and I've been asked to go to the most northern town. I suppose Councillor Crawford has got more than enough on her agenda. I'm not sure. I haven't been discussed before this meeting, so it's a bit of a surprise.
Well, I was going to ask next whether there were any other nominations.
Yeah, perhaps we can just is there any
Are
other
there
nominations?
any other nominations for the Coles Bay Hall Committee?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Crawford, if I could, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Crawford?
Thank you, Mayor Kent. I would accept that just because it's not very long till the elections, so that, you know, I've been involved with that for, you know, the last 12 years, so kind of fairly got my head around what's going on. So I'd be prepared to do that till, well, there's vote anyway after the elections for that position if I get a second.
So how do you want to handle it? Vote on a piece of paper? Or?
You have a mover and a seconder for Councillor Farmer. If he declines it,
Yeah.
you can go on to the next one, but
Yeah.
you need to move that one first.
Well, I'd like to decline, given what I've just heard, I'd like to decline that nomination.
Okay, so we don't go to the ballot box. So my understanding...
I'll second Councillor Farmer's nomination of Councillor
Thank you.
Crawford.
Any further comment, councillors? Councillor Crawford, you are now duly elected to the Coles Bay.
Thank you.
So do we need a motion for that? Thank you.
You've got a mover and seconder. You just need to put the motion that Councillor Crawford. So.
Who's going to put the motion?
Well, yep.
Councillor Woods.
We have put the motion.
You already
Oh,
have
I've
the
got the
motion,
motion.
Mr Mayor. You simply need to put the motion.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. 7.3, agenda item, curbside vendors policy.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that council resolves to commence proceedings to engage with the community and existing licence holders requesting feedback on this report to assist with the review of the curbside vendors licence policy.
Seconder. Councillor Woods, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Unanimous. So, moving on. 7.4, bylaw review and renewal. Recommendation is on page 145. Someone care to move the recommendation?
Can I have a clarification before we...
Yes?
It's for renewal, or is it for, we must obtain by absolute majority?
Review and renewal. That's
Mr Mayor, it expires early 2019, I think.
December 2018.
December 2018? Well, there you go. That's how old I'm getting. It's caught up on me.
So it's a renew.
It's a renew, but a review.
A renew and a review. Okay, that's what... Thank you, Mr Mayor. I can move if you wish to, the recommendation.
Thank you.
In accordance with the purpose of section 1561 of the Local Government Act 1993, Council hereby resolves by absolute majority that it intends to make a regulatory service environmental health bylaw. Number 2, Council directs the General Manager to take all necessary steps under section 156A of the Local Government Act 1993 to prepare and submit a regulatory impact statement in respect to the proposed regulatory services environmental health bylaw to the Director of the Local Government.
We have a seconder for that recommendation. Councillor Steiner. Any further discussion, councillors? Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor Kent. I'm not actually sure about this. I have a bit of a problem because, particularly on number 2, asking the General Manager to submit a regulatory impact statement when councils haven't even actually seen the review or what it's likely to be or had input. So I would actually put an amendment to number 2. The council directs the General Manager to take all necessary steps under 156A of the Local Government Act to prepare and submit a regulatory impact statement to council before the proposed regulatory service environmental health bylaw is submitted to the Director of Local Government. Because this is actually strategic. It's not actually an operational, thing. So go out to community or it needs to come to council. We may need to have input, and certainly with the regulatory impact statement. So that would be my amendment to that motion.
The amendment again, please, Councillor Crawford.
Yes,
And Ms.
submit a
Kirby.
regulatory impact statement to council before the proposed regulatory service environmental health bylaw is submitted to the Director of Local Government.
As the mover, Councillor Farmer, you happy with that?
I'm just reading the paragraph above on the top of that page, on top 145. Can that be done, given that paragraph? We conduct a workshop with councillors prior, so is that fits in with that particular amendment? Manager, is that
That's fine. Councillor Farmer.
I'm okay with the amendment then, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor.
and your second is okay with them. Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion, councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Can I just have clarification? You've actually put the amendment into the motion, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yep.
Okay, all those unanimous? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you. For 7.5, Freycinet Volunteer Marine Rescue Association. Recommendation is on page 147. Councillor Crawford.
Yeah, the council approves a grant of $767 to the Freycinet Volunteer Marine Rescue Association towards the costs of equipment and training.
Councillor Woods. Second. Comment, councillors?
I just think, Mr. Mayor, that he's doing a pretty good job up there and he should be fully supported.
Put the recommendation. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 7.6, Spring Bay RSL. Deputy Mayor is going elsewhere because she is heavily involved in the RSL. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So, recommendation is there. Someone care to move the recommendation with reference to the RSL? Councillor Woods.
Council approves a grant of $700 to Spring Bay RSL Sub-Branch Incorporated towards the cost of Anzac Day breakfasts and lunches, $500, and the purchase of 10 trestle tables at $200.
Ms. Gill, seconder.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarification, is this for tomorrow's event?
Yes.
Or?
My understanding it is.
Oh, right, okay, it's pretty quick.
Okay, all those in favour of the recommendation? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Tony, would you be kind enough to ask Deputy Mayor to return? Thank you. Deputy Mayor, that's been carried and approved for the RSL.
Thank you, councillors.
Agenda item 7.7, Swansea Chamber of Commerce and Tourism. There's a recommendation there. Someone care to move the recommendation, please? Councillor Farmer.
The recommendation, Mr. Mayor, that council approves a grant of $500 to the Swansea Chamber of Commerce towards the cost of the coordinator of the Swansea Destination Action Plan Subcommittee of the Swansea Chamber of Commerce and Tourism to attending the Tasmanian Tourism Industry Conference in Launceston. I think it's, not sure what date that is, Mr Mayor, but I think it's the 10th of May, 10th of May this year.
Okay. Any further comment with the recommendation?
We need a seconder.
We need a seconder, I'm sorry. Yes, we do. Seconder, Deputy Mayor, all those in favour of the recommendation? Councillor Woods, Deputy Mayor, myself, Councillor Parker, Councillor Farmer, those against, Councillor Steiner and Councillor Crawford. The recommendation has been approved and passed. Thank you. Agenda item 8 is miscellaneous correspondence. All there to note. Thank you. Agenda item 9, motion tracking document. Is there any questions from councillors on the motion tracking document? No questions? Moving on. Agenda item 10, questions without notice. Any councillors have any questions without notice?
Mr Mayor, I don't have a question. What I would like to do is place on record that Ms Nadine Ozels, who is a long-term resident of Bicheno and has been part of our Healthy Communities program here for a number of years, was a finalist in the St Luke's Healthy Communities Award at the Tasmanian Young Achievers Awards on Saturday night. Ms Ozels, in fact, won her category, and I would like to place on record Council's congratulations to her for that achievement.
Thank you. Any other questions without notice? Councillor Farmer.
Just a comment, on, if you could, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to congratulate the planner on all the work that he's done over these agendas, not only this one, but over previous agendas too, especially a book a month that he writes with his staff, and I'd just like to say that well done, and you can see the folders there on his desk that there's a lot more reading that he does than what we do, so I'd just like to say on the agenda, thanks very much for your assistance.
Thank you. Duly noted. Thank you. Being no further questions, councillors, yes. I will... Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I did have my hand up all the time.
Sorry?
I did have my hand up all the time. I have a question to the General Manager, and it is regarding the issue of vouchers to the tips. I've been approached by a ratepayer concerning this, and I'd like just to fill the councillors in because I was completely unaware that this is the situation this council has got itself into. Each year we pay our rates, and most of us have garbage collections from our door, from front of our property. This person lives 250 metres away from the property, so therefore is issued with vouchers. Excuse me. The vouchers are issued on a monthly basis, January, February, so on. But if you were 250 metres away from curbside collection and received these vouchers, but then broke a leg and you couldn't get to the tip for 1, 2 months, 3 months, those vouchers are redeemed. You cannot use them. And I have a big problem that this council's allowed that to happen. We have a ratepayer in that situation, and he's been told that what he's missed out on he can't redeem. So therefore, why are we charging the amount? It's like our rates. This gentleman pays his rates, not over monthly instalments, but over the whole 12 months. So I was shocked that the situation's there like that. I would have thought that the vouchers would have been issued so that if you use all your vouchers within the first 6 months, then you pay for the following 6 months like anyone else. But to be in a situation where you can't get to the tip over a period of time, and whether it may be lucky enough to be on holidays, then why should your vouchers be redeemed?
Okay. Thank you. General Manager, would you like to comment, or we pass it to the Works Manager?
Mr Mayor, I haven't even seen a waste voucher, so I'll
Pass
turn
it
that
to
one
the-
over to the Works Manager.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Vouchers reflect curbside collections, so those people that elect to get a voucher get 2 recycling collections to the transfer station and 4 rubbish collection disposals per month. There are areas where you can get an exemption for the fees and charges if you're in remote areas. You can change or alternate between bins and vouchers. It's just a matter of picking up a form from here, and you can exchange your bins and get vouchers, or you can go from vouchers to get bins. We do have cases where people are restricted to taking their bins to the street or from their house to the street. That's catered for in our contract, where they'll actually go on site and collect the bin for them, like the vulnerable type people. So we do have areas for that as well. I haven't heard of anything like that. I think the 250 metres you're talking about is one of the conditions that you can go from bins to vouchers, is that your house is further back from the road frontage of 250 metres. But I'm sure if the person would like to contact me, would arrange something for sure through our contractor.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, any further? Councillor Woods?
No, Councillor Crawford had her hand up.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry. Councillor Crawford?
Thank you, Mayor Kent. I suppose it is a question. Parking in lieu that has come up at council, just that we're looking at the vendors, roadside vendor situation. I'd actually ask if we couldn't perhaps put parking in lieu as a discussion. Perhaps there's an opportunity there to look at maybe actually having an annual fee or charge on that, rather than an upfront total cost. Just asking for that to actually maybe come to council for a workshop or for a discussion, please.
Yeah, Mr Hervey, you note that for a workshop going forward. Thank you. Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, if I may. I've got a question and a letter, if I am permitted to read a letter out from me to this council. That's entirely up to the council. But the first question I've got is to the General Manager, is when can we expect to start budget talks for 2018-19, and in what sort of format will they be held in?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, the wish lists closed last Friday, so we're collating those at the moment, and I'll get a timetable out to councillors very shortly with some budget workshops.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, if I can ask the indulgence of this council for me to be able to read a letter that I've written to this council, or would you prefer me to put it on the next agenda?
Well, councillors, how do you want to deal with it? It's open. Is it a public letter?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll read you exactly what I've written, because I've handwritten it and how it sounds. This is a letter to this sitting council. Along with the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Farmer, I attended the farewell reception for former Councillor Cadart at the Courthouse on the 19th of April. That was last Thursday. Before the reception, we, along with other guests such as Senator Erica Betts and Jen Baker, MP, mayors and GMs from all over the state, and many ratepayers and residents gathered at the Heritage Museum to see and hear of the artefacts that Bertrand has donated to the museum and his beloved east coast of Tasmania. Items such as his formal mayoral scooter and jacket, his infamous mayoral robe, items from his days as Clunk in Mad Max, and also treasured awards and gifts that he received during his time on this council as mayor. The heartfelt speeches that we were privileged to hear at the reception were spoken with so much respect and admiration that they brought many of us, including me, to tears, especially the speech from our General Manager. what he brought to our municipal area and to the state of Tasmania is quite immeasurable. This is a sentiment that was spoken about through all of the speakers who paid tribute to his tireless work and dedication. And in his words, in his speech, and he said that this was the best job he had ever had the privilege to do. It is at this point that I would like to say that to this sitting council how utterly dismayed and ashamed I am of the way this council treated Councillor Gaddart's request for 6 months' leave to deal with his health issues. He spoke about this within his speech, and for everyone around the table, I would like to inform you that Bertrand is effectively dying from a blood cancer, and he would have preferred to have dealt with it in private. And that is the reason for his reason for his request of leave, so that he could be treated with chemo and to have him forced to resign because this council wouldn't afford him that request is beyond words. I could go on, but I won't, only to finish with I hope to God that no other sitting councillor is treated with the same disrespect and disdain that was shown to a sitting elected member of this council. And I thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Woods. Any further questions without notice, please? No further questions without noting. I'll close the meeting and declare the meeting time at 6:20. The live streaming and recording of the meetings will now be switched off. I will check